What is up, guys? Epidemic here with yet another video. Today we are talking cameras. Now, not specifically any kind, well, yeah, kinda, but anyway, we're talking about a $600 camera versus a $2,500 camera. Yeah, why is it so great? Like, why is it so much money? Let's talk about it now. Alright guys, so we have a lot to talk about and not a lot of time, so let me get started. We're going to be talking about the Canon T5i, which is right here. Okay, not sure if you guys can see that, but this is the Canon T5i, and we're going to be talking about the Canon R6, which I am filming on right now. So, let's start with the Canon T5i. Now, this thing is the beginner camera that I have started with, and it has gotten the job done just fine. As I have said in my previous video, you guys have seen it, blah blah blah. Of course, I've gotten some good B-roll with this, but let's get down to the specifics, where everything is coming from, and you know what? Let's just stop rambling and get started. Now, with this camera, you have an APS-C sensor. Now, if you know anything about photography or filmmaking, that means that this is a cropped sensor. Now, that means the image processor for this camera will actually crop the image by 1.6 times. So I have a 17mm to 70mm on this lens. So if I'm at 17 mils, that means this will be about 27.4. Check my math on that if you disagree. But anyway, yeah, so this is a great camera, but the image is cropped, which is why I choose to shoot on the R6, because it is full frame camera. And you know what? This thing is great when you actually want to use a telephoto lens, because you will get more range out of a telephoto with this camera. However, if you want wider lenses, that's where you're gonna get hurt a bit. This thing is an 18 megapixel sensor, so that is very capable. I shoot on 20 megapixels, which is not that big of a difference on the R6, and honestly, it gets the job done for photography just fine. If you really want to actually get into photography or whatnot, this is a good option for you guys, but I know that's probably not all that you want to have out of this camera, so I'm gonna get into frame rates and resolution. Now, of course, with this camera, it doesn't offer a lot for filmmaking and like videos and stuff like that, because this only does 1080p at 30 frames per second. If you are into videos or filmmaking, then you guys know this does not offer 60 frames per second or 120 frames per second, which is slow motion video or good quality, like close to slow motion video. I mean, for filmmaking, this just offers the basic needs for a filmmaker. Now, it's not the end of the world. You can fake slow motion in post-production, but other than that, it will slow you down a bit. Now, this thing here has a good flip-out LCD screen, which I have used multiple times for vlogging, for like any type of good shooting. If I'm shooting down low near the ground, this is great. I can tilt this up a bit and see what I am shooting and get some good results with this. So it has opened many doors ever since Canon has had like these LCD screens out, and honestly, I can't complain there. Now, one of the drawbacks that I have to say about this camera is that it doesn't have the dual pixel autofocus that a lot of us know and love from Canon's line of cameras. Now, that is one of the drawbacks I had of this. I had a lot of hunting going on in this camera whenever I had videos or maybe some B-roll or any films that I was making. I had trouble with that, but honestly, it actually got the job just fine. Now, it does take this one battery. Actually, let me see. LPE8 battery. Now, that not a lot of us know about that, because one, Canon has been using a lot of their LPE6 batteries with their new lineups of cameras, like from the 5D Mark II all the way up to the R5 and R6, which I shoot on yet again. But yeah, this is actually a good long-lasting battery that I have come to love. within my time of using this camera, but honestly, it's not as good as the R6, which we're gonna actually switch to in a moment. So I'll snap my fingers and there. Now we are on the Canon T5i, which again I have to switch to show you off my new camera, of course, which is the Canon. Wait, let me just actually change this real like. We're talking about the Canon R6 now. So this here is the Canon R6. Of course, like I said, I do not have autofocus on the T5i here, so you guys are gonna have to stick with me. But anyway, this camera delivers so much, and I have been so excited to actually talk about this with you guys for a while. As you can see from my last video, if you haven't seen it yet, you guys can actually watch that right here, I think. But anyway, let's get started with the Canon R6. Now, with this camera, you are talking about a good $2,500 like US. That is a lot of money to invest in, and there's a lot going on in this camera that you won't believe. Now, of course, it has the same flip out screen that you would have on the T5i and other Canon cameras today. For the photography side of things, this is 20 megapixels. So again, not that big of an improvement, but still very capable for photography and gets the job done just fine. Now, this is a full frame sensor, so I have a 24-105 on this. It'll stay at 24 millimeters when I have it on 24 millimeters like I have now, because it is a full frame sensor and doesn't crop out the image like on APS-C sensor. Now, this thing has high frame rates when it comes to photo mode. Like here, I will actually do this for you again, like in my last video. Okay, there we go, and yeah, what you guys heard was 12 frames per second mechanical shutter, and you guys know from my last video, I have 20 frames per second on electronic shutter in live preview, so that is a fast amount of photos to be taken each second by this camera, so you can see why it's so expensive. As far as memory cards, this thing takes 2 memory cards. I have one right here. Let me take out the second one right there. Now, I don't have to worry about getting an expensive memory card for this camera because it takes dual SD card slots. That's pretty much all that you need, and a lot of people have dual SD card slots. So, of course, on the photography side of things, this thing delivers with no bounds. Like, and not only that, this thing is a mirrorless camera. I can literally have a sharper image to, oh my goodness. Moving on, so this mirrorless camera gives you a sharper image because there's no mirror or anything inside this as you would with the DSLR, like the T5i, because the back glass of the lens is much closer to the sensor, and so you're gonna get a much sharper image edge to edge with each photo you take. Did I just drool? Oh my goodness. But anyway, guys, let's actually talk about video and frame rates with this thing. Now, of course, there has been a problem with the past Canon cameras, which is cropping out images when you shoot 4K. But now with this new technology and the Canon R5, which was the follow-up for it, Canon R6 does not crop out the image at 4K in 60 frames per second. If you're in a video quality, then this is great. It also does 4K 30, 4K 24 frames per second. And not only that, it also does 1080p, 120 frames per second, 60 frames per second, 30 frames per second, and 24 frames per second. So this thing is a great camera for anyone who's looking to actually do this professionally and do filmmaking and stuff like that. This camera delivers. Anyway, guys, so moving on. The next thing I want to talk about is dynamic range. This thing has Canon log modes. Now, if you're into Canon's new technology, they have something called Canon log, which is a flat color profile, which makes things more cinematic, has more high quality, and you're getting to color grade as much as you'd like. And honestly, in post-production, it looks so good. Like, with my last video, you guys might have seen it didn't look as good, but it looked a little bit better than what I thought it was. But anyway, that stuff is happening on here, so I can actually make cinematic looking footage with this camera, and it has everything I need. I don't have to do as much in post-production as compared to the T5i. Now, comparing these two cameras, it really comes down to what do you need as an artist, as a filmmaker, as a photographer, and what features do you want out of a camera. Like, for me, I did not actually do that when I first started on my photography and filmmaking journey. I'm still at the beginning of that. I'm just saying that right now. But anyway, this, you have to think about, what is it that I need? What do you need compared to what I need? Because honestly, this camera is only 20 megapixels. Like, I don't really care about the megapixel count. I mean, as long as it's not below like 18 or anything like that. Getting back on topic, I got to say that this camera meets all the needs that I have, because one, I don't need really that high res cinema camera functions. It would be nice to have that. That is something that I want, but for my basic needs, this camera delivers. As compared to the T5i, that camera might be great for you guys, but they're not as good for me, for photography or whatever. But for me, of course, it's not really about telling you guys about what to get as a photographer or filmmaker. I just want to say what great things are about these cameras, and maybe it might meet your needs compared to mine. That's all I'm saying. So anyway, guys, I'm actually gonna take some B-roll with both of these cameras. I'm gonna put them on, I think I'm gonna put them on the same settings. Actually, that is a lie. I'm gonna actually use this camera at 24 frames per second and fake slow-mo in post-production, whereas with this, I'm gonna use 120 frames per second at 1080 full HD slow motion video, and just put it through slow-mo, through post-production, and I want you guys to see the difference in both of these cameras. Let's go. Alright guys, we are back on the Canon EOS R6. So as you can see, there's not much difference when you can actually know the skills behind filmmaking for any camera. Now, of course, as I said before, it's really up to you what kind of features you want out of a camera, what your budget is, and of course what you want to do with that camera, whether it's photography or filmmaking. So honestly, it's up to you in the end. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hit like and subscribe. Follow me on social media if you can, and I hope to see you in the next video. Later.